Believe it or not, but this moment right here is one of my all-time favorite pieces of filmmaking. Did you see it? Let's watch it again, but this time make sure to listen. Right there, the sound of the next scene begins while we are still watching the scene in the club. This is my favorite example of a filmmaking technique called a pre-lap. But unfortunately, you cannot just be told what a pre-lap is. You have to see it for yourself. But the good news is that you have actually seen this technique used countless times, because the pre-lap is a technique for editors and filmmakers to transition from scene A to scene B by introducing us to sounds from scene B before we cut to it. And once you know this technique, you will start to see it everywhere, because pretty much any sound can be used for a pre-lap to work. You can do it with a door knock. Morning! You can do it with a football whistle.
I got to go to college too.
Or a ringing phone.
Hello?
Sometimes it can be a vehicle, like a car. Or a plane. Or a helicopter.
You do realize that window is broken from the inside?
Huh?
Or a train.
Yeah.
In fact, train whistles are so commonly used as pre-laps that 4 different Harry Potter movies, all with different directors and editors, do this with the Hogwarts Express in some way.
He wants to kill me.
In Indiana Jones, Steven Spielberg literally signposts the upcoming change of location with a pre-lap. I told you, you've seen this 1,000 times. Now, you may have heard of this technique being called the J-cut, but the pre-lap is different. See, a J-cut typically refers to overlapping dialogue within a scene to make it flow better, kind of like this.
Why? Because they're exclusive and fun, and they lead to a better life.
It's called a J-cut because the shape it makes on an editor's timeline looks nothing at all like the letter J. It's a fairly functional tool, and without it, dialogue scenes would all feel a bit like a Wes Anderson movie.
What's your name?
Sam, what's yours?
I'm Susie.
So how is a pre-lap different? Well, although you could call it a type of J-cut, the pre-lap is used specifically to transition between scenes, not shots. And unlike a J-cut, which serves a fairly practical purpose, the best pre-laps are used to emphasize characters, themes, or story, and to give the film a sense of cohesion. Like, take this example from Edgar Wright, one of the most prolific users of the pre-lap.
Liz from head office. It's nothing to panic about.
Sir?
We hear the siren before seeing the car in the next scene, and combined with the fast transition, it sweeps us from one scene to the other and means we start that next scene with a sense of urgency that maintains the momentum of the story. It shows how the pre-lap is a small editing decision that, when used correctly, can make a movie just a tiny bit better by building an invisible bridge between 2 scenes and make the story flow in a more seamless way. Probably the earliest known example of the pre-lap in a major film was by David Lean in Lawrence of Arabia. He was a master of long, epic movies and knew that getting scene transitions right was crucial not only to maintaining the audience's engagement with the long story, but to connect us with the characters.
Who are you? Who are you?
So to show why this works, let's watch that last transition again, but with the pre-lap edited out.
Who are you?
It's worse, right? Even a bit jarring. Overlapping the sound smooths over the scene and location change and sweeps us from one place to the next. And it's something David Lean does a lot in Lawrence.
The best of them won't come for money.
They'll come for me.
Now, most of the examples I've shown you so far have been diegetic sound effects from the new scene being pre-lapped in order to signal a change of location, but you can also use dialogue like this.
Benjamin?
Look, I was thinking about that time after the party,
Where are you?
and I was wondering if I could buy you a drink or something.
Or this. When dialogue is used for a pre-lap rather than a sound, it usually means that the filmmakers are wanting to emphasize the characters in the new scene, rather than the new location. Like, take this scene from Fight Club.
If you could fight anyone, who would you fight?
Fight my boss, probably.
The pre-lap makes us sympathize with the narrator wanting to fight his boss because the conversation about that begins while we are still sitting in his cubicle watching his boss droning on and on. All of the best pre-laps work this way to draw us further into the world of the film. If we return to the Matrix one again, not only does it smooth over the transition from scene A to B, but the sudden jump from the club to the bed with the alarm clock sounding throughout makes us immediately wonder if this was all just Neo's dream. It's the same in this pre-lap from the Batman, where we see Batman mulling over a new clue and the sound of the subway from the next scene begins.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you think I'm reading way too much into all of this, here's the editor talking about just how intentional that was.
Then we cut to Batman's face and you can see his wheels turning and he says, yeah, but as those wheels are turning, we start feeling the rumble of train tracks.
Oh, and it's not the only time they did this in the Batman, by the way.
What are the values of those pre-laps?
I think it propels you into the next scene, and sometimes in an unexpected way. We have this kind of a throbbing beat coming up and you're not sure what that is, and wham, we're back in the club. The pre-lap you think is telling you one thing, but it throws you into an unexpected place.
Pre-lapping dialogue from scene B while we are still watching scene A can also help emphasize the outcome or consequences of a particular scene.
You're fired. Parker, hello, you're fired.
At the start of Mission Impossible Fallout, when Ethan and the gang lose the nuclear weapons, we hear the newscast while we are still seeing their reaction.
If you're just joining us, 3 massive explosions have gone off.
Or this truly remarkable piece of method acting by Jared Leto, where he actually became a real car horn in order to make this scene truly authentic. Such commitment to the craft, I can't wait for the Morbius cinematic universe. Anyway, this shows how humour that is written into the screenplay can be emphasized by the pre-lap by narrowing the time between the setup and the punchline.
Come on, she's never gonna find out. It'll be like our little secret.
Hello? I know your secret.
I wonder what Ruben will say.
You're out of your goddamn minds.
Sometimes you'll see a pre-lap being used over the studio logos to establish the location, a sort of soft cold open.
So stay with us because later this afternoon we're lucky enough to...
And of course, the final way in which pre-laps are commonly used is to introduce a flashback. By introducing us to a sound from the scene in the past, we instinctively understand from the filmmaking language being used that we are going into the memory of the character on screen. The pre-lap is a part of this filmmaking language and gets used a lot for flashbacks.
I was there, I was there.
I'm tired of safe. I just want to do something useful with my life.
It also works the opposite way, to signal a flash forward in time.
Mr. Dufresne, describe the confrontation you had with your wife.
And while on this point, we can't talk about pre-laps without talking about the opposite, a post-lap. This is when the sound of scene A carries over onto scene B, and we mostly see it being used with narration.
It began long ago.
Christopher Nolan loves a post-lap, especially to end his films. It lets him transition from the closing scene to what is essentially a montage of shots tying up the plot threads of the other characters, but set to the voiceover of a character speaking from the closing scene, usually summing up the theme of the movie. This is how he ends The Prestige, The Dark Knight, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. But what if you're not trying to deliver a powerful ending and instead want to just, say, introduce a new character? Well, you use a post-lap.
Fry.
What if you want to really emphasize something, like a scream? or a character death. The pre-lap and its opposite number, the post-lap, is a fantastic and incredibly versatile editing and filmmaking technique that can make a huge difference to the flow of a film. It's invisible and barely noticeable, but it works and can be used in so many different ways. That's why it's so popular with so many filmmakers. Seriously, watch this video again and look at the diversity of directors who have used the pre-lap. And while you're doing that, please consider subscribing or checking out one of the other videos on my channel that, like the pre-lap, have already appeared on the screen. See you next time.